Hiya 5. Today's recorded lesson is going to be English, and we're going to be looking at use of pesticides and how we can improve the use of or get rid of the use of pesticides to improve our environment. So I have a PowerPoint here I'd like to share with you. So make it larger for you. Here we have 4 images. The first image is a tractor. On these long arms, you have pesticides being sprayed, and obviously being sprayed over the crops on the ground. This image, this is called a crop duster, this aeroplane. Excuse me. And the spray here, that's pesticide. So as the plane flies over the fields, it sprays the pesticide over the crops on the ground. This third picture here, these are ladybirds. I know it's difficult to see, and they're sitting on this organic matter here. Organic matter is just vegetation, plants, leaves, that kind of thing. And then here we have this gentleman here who's suited up. He's got a huge visor to protect himself, and he's got this gun which is spraying pesticides out over the plants here. So just the fact that he is wearing this huge suit and a visor, that kind of gives us the clue the pesticides aren't particularly healthy if you're up close. So which is the odd one out? It's fairly obvious. It's the ladybirds. They're not pesticides. They're not doing any harm to the environment. So it's this picture here. So the PowerPoint's all about pesticides, and our learning objective is to explain issues with using pesticides and how toxic chemicals pass up a food chain. Toxic means poisonous, basically. And if you look at the picture here, you have basically a strawberry field that's been sprayed with pesticides, and there's a huge sign here saying danger, keep out. So that gives us the clue that pesticides may not be particularly healthy for us. So what is a pesticide? Well, pests are animals that harm plants. So here you have grasshopper. Here you have mosquito, not particularly pleasant to us. I don't know whether you've had mosquito bites in the summer, but they itch, they get really, really red, and they're really unpleasant. And then this little deer here, that's a slug. We planted loads of plants in our garden this year, and when we got up the next morning, the slugs had decimated them, so we had to get a slug repellent. So these are pests, and basically they eat crops, and farmers really want to get rid of pests because obviously they're eating all their profits. One way of doing that is to use pesticides, and these are chemicals that kill pests. But if you look at the previous slide, danger, pesticides. So the question is, do we really want our food sprayed with basically poison? So here you have a picture of poison being poured into a river or stream, and here you have fish. So the predator in this picture is the heron, and the prey is the fish. So the question, why does the heron get more poison than the fish? Well, the fish are consuming some of the poison, but the heron is going to be consuming a lot of fish. And so that means the heron is going to be consuming far more poison than the actual fish. What would happen to a predator that ate the heron? Well, if they eat lots of herons, obviously they are going to be consuming more and more poison. This slide here shows how pesticides in a food chain accumulate. So you get more and more and more. So the first picture is the tomato plant, and that's sprayed with insecticide. Insecticide is exactly the same as pesticide. Then the aphid, now these tiny little green things, these are called aphids. They're just little bugs. They live on the tomato plants. So as they are eating the leaves and the sap within the tomato plant, they're getting 5 molecules of insecticide. Now this lacewing, this eats the aphids, but obviously consumes quite a few of them. So the lacewing eats 100 aphids. So if one aphid has 5 molecules of insecticide, 100 aphids receives 500 molecules of insecticide. Then the lacewings are eaten by the blue tits. So one blue tit eats 10 lacewings. So 500 multiplied by 10, they receive 5,000 molecules of insecticide. The blue tits are then eaten by the peregrine falcon, and he eats 5 blue tits. So 5 multiplied by 5,000 means that he receives 25,000 molecules of insecticide. So this is the way pesticides accumulate within the predators. So the further up the predator is on the food chain, so this is where it starts. So the further up food chain you travel, the more molecules of insecticide or pesticide that creature consumes. So obviously it's becoming more and more dangerous. So how would you draw this food chain, starting with a cabbage, including a caterpillar, a mouse and a barn owl? So the producer, that's the start of the food chain and is always a green plant. The producer is the cabbage. What animal do you think eats the cabbage? Well, it's the caterpillar. So you've got cabbage to caterpillar. What animal eats the caterpillar? Well, it's the mouse. And what eats mice? The barn owl. So out of all of these, which is going to contain the most pesticide or insecticide? It's going to be the barn owl, because he's the furthest up the food chain. DDT is a persistent poison. So persistent means it carries on and on and on. And it builds up along the food chain. Here are 4 different points of view. So DDT saves lives. It kills mosquitoes that carry malaria. DDT helps protect crops from locusts. They can eat tons of food in a few days. DDT prevents people from starving to death. Third point of view. We all have some DDT inside us now because it persists in the environment. We have poisoned ourselves with this dreadful chemical. And the fourth one, DDT has driven some birds of prey almost to extinction. It would have been better if we'd never invented it. So I want you to think. Okay, pause the video in a moment and think, what do you agree with? Do you think DDT, a persistent poison, is a friend or a foe? And then I want you to decide why you think that. So why do you think it's either a friend, or why do you think it's a foe? Pause the video and have a little think yourself. It's obvious that DDT does save lives. because mosquitoes can kill. It's a fact that, yes, DDT is inside us now because it's in the environment. We breathe it in, we eat it through our food. Yes, it does stop locusts and it does stop pests eating and consuming all the crops that the farmers are producing. But it's also true that birds of prey have almost become extinct because they've been killed by the huge amounts of insecticide that they've consumed. So organic farming, I'm sure when you go to the shop, you see organic vegetables and organic produce. So have a think about what you think organic farming might be. Organic farming is a type of agriculture is farming, that does not use chemicals such as fertilizers and pesticides to grow its food. So it's safer. Organic vegetables are safer for us to eat. The fertilizers that the farmers use, these not only encourage the vegetables to grow better, but they also allow the insects and the pests to grow. So as much as they're increasing the amount of crops they use by using fertilizer, they're also increasing the number of pests. And whilst they're increasing the number of pests, then they have to increase the number of pesticides. There are some ways to stop this, and organic farming is the way that they've avoided pesticides. One method is crop rotation. So in the first year, corn would be grown in this field. In the second year, corn would be grown in this field. The third year, corn would be grown in this field. And the fourth year, corn would be grown in this field. And this is so that the pests don't get used to that particular crop being grown in that particular field. So if you have pests that like corn, the second year the corn has moved over here, so the pests takes them a while for them to follow. So that's one way of avoiding use of pesticides, is crop rotation. The next way is biological pest control. So that means you introduce insects into an environment that actually prey on the pests that the farmers are trying to get rid of. So if farmers are trying to get rid of aphids, they could introduce a lot of ladybirds, and the ladybirds can consume the aphids without the use of pesticides, and their crops don't get eaten. The other is lacewings. They also eat aphids. Aphids are an absolute nuisance. We tried to grow, can't remember the name of their plant, lupins, that's it, and planted them. They started to grow and the aphids ate the lot. I was devastated. Oops, what am I doing? Here we go. So evaluating the use of pesticides. So here's the advantages. You get a higher yield of crops. That means you get more crops and therefore more money. Pesticides are fast acting. So you spray the field and the pests die very, very quickly. They act against a wide range of pests. So if you've got one particular kind of pest, it doesn't matter. You can spray and you can get rid of all of the pests. Whereas if you were going for the biological method using ladybirds, the ladybirds only prey on aphids. And it's less manual labour. As you saw, they had huge tractors spraying fields, and in some places they have aeroplanes, crop dusters. The disadvantages is it's expensive to buy equipment and pesticide. It costs a lot of money to fly a plane, and it costs a lot of money to buy one of those tractors. It's non-selective. That means that oftentimes the pesticides kill insects, animals that actually they don't want to kill. It just happens. And the third thing is it's harmful to the environment. So your task is to research the difference in price between organic and inorganic foods. So you can do this by looking in your local supermarket. Say you're going shopping with mum or nan or granddad, or you can go online using the supermarket online shop website. So I want you to look at what you notice about the difference in price and why do you think there is a difference in price. Attached to the assignment as well, I have this worksheet. If you can't download this worksheet, if you can't write on the worksheet, don't worry about it. Just write the questions and write it on a piece of paper. You can take a picture and send me the picture. You can email it to me, or you can just do it on paper and bring it when we're back in school, which is hopefully very soon. So here are the questions. 1, what is a pesticide? 2, how does the concentration of pesticides build in the food chain? 3, DDT, is it a friend or foe? What do you think and why? And then finally, price research. Search for the cost of organic and non-organic foods and list them. Focus on fresh food, such as vegetables and fruits. You could also try to search for meat, though that's a bit trickier to do. And why do you think there's a difference in price? I really hope you enjoy this activity. I enjoyed finding out about it, and I hope you do too. Hope to see you back in school very soon. Sorry, I'm on my knees. I knew you'd get me on my knees one day. You have succeeded. Hope to see you back in school. Take care, Year 5, and enjoy yourselves.